So guys, you have a choice. You can either carry on suffering in silence, hoping that things will get better, but unless you change what you do or how you do it, things cannot get better.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host and special guest, Arthur. Arthur, how you doing, brother?
I'm good.
So, Arthur, I didn't say your last name because I remember distinctly the first few times I asked you how to pronounce your last name. You kept on saying, just don't do it. Don't do it. So tell everybody, how do you pronounce your last name? Now, this is the first time I'll get to hear it from you, too.
Okay. I mean, I still battle with it now and then, but it's Magoulianiti. Magoulianiti.
Magoulianiti. That's not as difficult as you made it sound, my friend. So for those that don't know, Arthur is the head coach and he leads most of the Powerful Man movement. He is the man that not only guides the men, but Arthur, you've also been through the journey yourself.
Yep.
And today, if you're okay with it, what I thought would be great for the listeners is to hear a little bit more about your journey, because it is so fascinating and you've become such a prevalent coach within the movement, as well as changing the lives of the men that come through it, as well as outside people you encounter. So, you're somebody that I look to for guidance and coaching as well, and as a mentor and as a brother to me. Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Well, thank you firstly for that, Doug. I really appreciate that. It's a real privilege to be here speaking with you. I've been through, let's go through the backstory. I started off my life in Cape Town, did the whole school thing, did the whole studying thing, studied to become an electrical engineer, electronic engineer, went straight into corporate life, working for companies like Thomson Reuters, blue chip companies, and did really well. I had a good work ethic, worked hard, played hard at those times. It was just a good time. And I was always chasing the money at that stage. It was all about how fast can I go up that ladder to get the money that I wanted to, that I thought would make everything right, that would make me happy, that I would win this game of life. But it was, I hadn't transitioned from being a boy to being a man. Mm-hmm. By the time I had left home, because I got a very quick promotion, and I left home, changed city, and suddenly I was on my own, away from the whole family and friend structure, and I had to create my whole life there. At the same time, I had quite a bit of money coming in because I was being paid really well. And those kind of things all dovetailed into one big mess because, suddenly there's a young guy with money, having a good time, working hard, playing hard, together with the other guys around the business, the work that we had there. And then, after a couple of years of abusing the body, I got sick, it was surprise. But I think it was after a year of lots of drinking, lots of partying, lots of working hard, late nights, fast food, all of that kind of stuff.
Burning the candle at both ends, it sounds like.
What's that?
Burning the candle at both ends?
Yeah, exactly that. It was a high-pressure environment. It was the banking environment. We were servicing trading desks, banks. On the trading side, obviously, that operation is really high pressure. Something breaks, you got to be there quickly. But we had a great group of guys, and we used to hang out together. So we used to work hard till about 5 o'clock on normal service faults. Then we used to go out on upgrades, which could only happen after hours. And then we go out drinking. And this is what would happen day in, day out for the whole year that year. End of that year, I got food poisoning. And I think that was the cherry on the top of my body, and it just shut down. Boom. I couldn't eat properly. I had digestive issues, and I won't go into the details of it, but it just knocked me out completely. I couldn't drink anymore. I couldn't really eat anything. It was really just basic stuff. Got really, really sick. And the downside about it was the doctors couldn't tell me what was wrong with me. And so I went from one doctor to the other doctor to the other doctor. and all the time, my social life has come to a standstill. My professional life is just barely hanging on because I can't really operate. My support structure dissolved around me. All the friends so-called friends that I thought I had dissolved into the ether. Because I mean, for one hand, I couldn't blame them. Like, I couldn't drink anymore. I would go out with them. I couldn't drink. I was the boring one suddenly. They were still carrying on as normally, partying and everything. And I'm thinking, well, you guys are being silly, and they're thinking, oh, you're being boring. And so that went two separate ways. Long story short, that year that following year of being sick, actually, without having any options, without having any solutions, I was just slowly becoming a recluse at home. The pain of not knowing what's next, the pain of my whole life coming to a standstill, no solutions. I started losing hope. And it got pretty grim the one night, because by that stage I'd been to so many different doctors, and I had pipes stuck into me. They'd done everything, but they didn't do the one thing that I was looking for, saying, take this pill, we'll fix you, or do this and you'll be fixed. And so I'd lost hope. I was 26 years old. I hadn't explained the story to my parents because they were in another city. I didn't want to worry them. They couldn't have helped. My friends weren't around me, so I was literally on my own without hope. And that had gone on for quite a few months now. And then the one night I was just sitting at home thinking, I can't go on anymore. It's just too painful to go on. And at that time in South Africa, things were quite dangerous. I had purchased a weapon, a pistol for self-protection. I hardly ever carried it around with me because I was never comfortable with it, but I had it at home. And that night I pulled it out and started cleaning it, just starting to have those kind of ideas of thinking like, actually, it's just one pull of a trigger and it's all done. It's all over. No more pain, and it's done. And I remember at that stage just sitting on my blue couch in my first property that I bought, and I can just remember the whole details. The room was dark, everything was quiet, and I just loaded the weapon, and I just brought it up to my face, and thinking, I just have to pull the trigger quickly and it's done. And I remember going through in my head what was the asking myself, is there any reason why I shouldn't pull this trigger? And as far as I was concerned, there was none. And so I thought, okay, well then, let's do it. That's where I was with this. And then as I proceeded to the next step, which was to raise the weapon, the next thing I saw was like a vision of my mom. It was the most weirdest thing. And it wasn't like a thought. It was more like I saw outside of me, in front of me. And I thought, oh my God, if I kill myself, I'm going to end her life as well.
Yeah.
Then I thought of my father. I thought of my siblings. I thought of people around me, family and everything. And that's what made me put the weapon down at that stage. It was just like, I could do it for myself, but I couldn't do it for the people around me that I would destroy their lives.
Mm.
And I went to sleep that night and I was a mess. I remember falling asleep saying the Lord's Prayer over and over and over and over. It was just such a traumatic experience. And that's what I think people call the rock bottom. There was no lower to go from there. And then that morning I woke up and I thought to myself, okay, well, you're still here. The only other option is start climbing again, and figure out an option. If it's not the doctors, you got to figure it out. It's up to you. You have to make it. And I remember that conversation quite clearly. It was just a real shift in commitment, in saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me. Yeah. And that began a 20-year journey of discovering how not to go back down there. Initially, that's what it was. It's like, how do I prevent myself from getting that low again? And then it sort of morphed into, how can I get better? And then it morphed into like, how can I prove I'm good enough? Because then it all started coming out, as I delved deeper, I got like better at things.
Sure.
And then
let me pause you real quick, Arthur, if I can, because I think there's so many nuggets in there, and I'm in a disadvantage almost because I know your story. You've been nice enough to share it with me. But let's recap, because I think there's a lot of men listening to this that either have been in that situation, because it's all too common, and everybody, of course, thinks, oh, it's only me, so I can't talk about it or bring it up. So you're 26 years old. You've been successful, more successful probably than most 26-year-olds. You're making, you say, good money. You're making really good money at this time. So money's not an issue. It's not a worry. It's almost like you got too much. And we know at 26, at least I was, testosterone's much higher than wisdom, right? So you're firing on all cylinders, and you're in an industry that's notorious for partying hard because they work so hard. Stress levels are high, expectations are high. It's just the culture that's in that finance and baking industry. So you're at 26, you're in your apartment, your condo, home by yourself. The doctors have given you no hope. And I know there's a lot of men that can resonate with this, because you and I hear this, of course, now all the time from men that, that inquire with a powerful man. When that lack of hope is it's so needed, right? In our journey of what we're trying to do in our self-identification. And, you're like, hey, you know what? It's really simple from a logical standpoint. One pull of trigger, my pain is done. And that's when almost an intervention, spiritual intervention, so to speak, happened.
Yeah.
So I wanted just to recap that. And I know I did it quickly, but I know there's a lot of men, that listening to this that have reached out to us that are in one of those three areas that you've talked about. They're in one of the three parts of the journey, or they've been in it. And guys, if you're listening to this and you resonate with something that Arthur has said here, just know you're not alone, right? That's, I think, the key thing here is, not only not alone, but Arthur, you are a shining example, because you're not 26 anymore. I don't know how old you are exactly, but you might be a year or two older. And, you've not only seen the other side, but you've come out of the other side in such a, fantastic manner. And I want you to talk about that. So you're just talking now, you're on a quest, and go for it.
Okay. So, yeah. So the first quest was to heal myself. Clearly, I had to fix that before I could do anything. And so I started looking at alternative means, alternative medicine, as we call it, or is that real medicine? I don't know. Where I went natural, and so slowly but surely, I started. Back then, I can't quite remember everything I did. I did a lot of different things. I tried a lot of different things. I know homeopathics was one of those things. I can't say that that's what worked for me. That was part of the solution. But I healed myself, right? But at that same time, I remember I started reading different books. I went to my first personal development workshop, and I fell in love with the whole world of potential. What is possible? Because obviously, what I had coming up to that point wasn't working. It worked in parts, but in parts it failed. As far as that happy life, that like I've got it all together. And so it gave me hope, it gave me promise, it gave me opportunity, it gave me, and we'll start talking about the whole personal development things. And I jumped in with both feet, and I just became I bought as many books as I could on the subject. I started going to workshop after workshop, and I slowly but surely figured out certain truths that started working, and I started applying for my life, both strategies outside, but more importantly, strategies inside. Because everything that was happening outside was a direct cause of what wasn't right inside. And it took me quite a few years to realize that I could chase everything outside, but unless I filled the holes inside, it wouldn't last long. But yeah, so I continued that. I left Johannesburg. I went to London, carried on with my career there, did well there, then decided I was going to leave the corporate world. I had enough. I was an entrepreneur at heart. I wanted to start my own business. I was still chasing money at that stage. And so I hadn't learned that lesson by that time. But then I went into property in 2003, did really well there. Once again, because I surrounded myself with the right people who had the right knowledge and supported me to go to the next level. I didn't do that on my own. Just like I didn't do the previous stuff on my own, like I found a team that would support me where I had lost my original team, if you want to say that. And And during this time, while I was still doing property investing, I was still traveling the world, learning from the best in the world, from like a Tony Robbins, from Harv T. Eker, from you name it. I've pretty much done it. John DeMartini, a lot of great teachers out there, and as well a lot of reading a lot of books continuously. And come 2008, where we had that financial meltdown, that's when I stopped property investing and I just went into conservation mode, protecting what I had built. And then I decided, what's my next career? So this was a third career coming up. And then I decided to get into coaching because I loved giving back to people. I loved sharing the information I was learning, because one of the things that I realized my mission in life was just to end suffering, end my own suffering and people's suffering. And if there was one purpose in my life, it's to end suffering. And personal development was the way that I saw I could help people do it for myself and for others.
Yeah. So there's so much to unpack because your story is so much deeper in that. We only have so much time to go into it. And you're so modest, by the way, which I love about you, because you were very successful in everything you've touched. You've done such a great job with those things. But there's some things that are commonalities in your story. One is you run into a problem, then you build a team around you because you're smart enough to know that you don't know everything, right? I call it teenager mode. As soon as we think that we understand and know everything, we're in teenager phase, and that's the most dangerous area to be in. Because a true expert is somebody that goes over that hump and realizes, like an adult does, oh crap, I don't know that much. Mm-hmm. I know more than most people, but it's just it's a very small amount. And so you've sought out experts and built a team around you to help you get to the next level. And I think the most important thing for you guys listening to this, you hear Arthur's story, there's a commonality in each one of these things, is he's taken action. He hasn't just sat there and thought about it. He hasn't whined about it, complained. I'm sure you complained and did all those things we all do. We're humans. But you also did that next step that many people miss. And guys, in my experience, this next step that Arthur took is what separates the ultra successful from those that are dreaming about it. This is the difference between having a vision board and achieving the vision. And that's you took action, right? You sought action and you didn't stop until you got the end result you were looking for, or at least you knew you were on that progression. So amazing stuff. So please continue.
Yeah. And just to add something on there, one of the most important lessons I learned or I lived by from that awful night 26, and I say awful night, but actually it's given me my life that I have now. So I'm really grateful that I went through it now. I wasn't then, I am now. but it is that there is always an option. There is always a way. And in the middle of all of that, I didn't see it. But of course there was, because the following morning I shifted my mindset and I went out and I found it. Yeah. And so action, as well as knowing that there's always hope, there's always another way, there's always an option. If you may not be able to see it, but someone near you can see it, will see it. And that's why you need to surround yourself with people that can help you. So where was I?
The market, you went to conservation mode 2008 when the economy started to collapse. Then you decided you were going to go into your third transition career, coaching.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, there were a couple of lessons that came out of the property. I'd reached my financial target that I always thought, like, if I hit that, I'm going to be happy. Everything's going to be sweet. And I hit that. And nothing changed.
Yeah.
Which was
it's a funny thing about when we achieve our wealth goals. We're like, wait a minute. It's supposed to be birds singing. I
flew straight past it. And it was just like maybe a couple of months later, I was sitting down and just doing my sums. And I thought, shit, I've hit my target 3 months ago. Nothing changed. Everything carried on.
Yeah.
And that's another lesson. For me, it was like, okay, we aim for these financial targets, but once again, unless you fix what's happening inside, that is not going to give you what you're really looking for. It's not going to fill holes. It can give you a better quality of life, for sure. It can give you more options, for sure. But it still didn't make me feel good enough, which is one of the underlying themes that I've had all my life, that I didn't feel good enough, and I had to go out there and prove to myself and to others that I was good enough by doing all these external things. instead of just getting to a stage within myself where I realize I am good enough, and so that whole journey after the property got me looking into giving back, contributing, coaching. A friend of mine that I worked with in London suggested we wanted to go into coaching, and then that opened up a whole new world for me. And then I started doing coaching training side by side with more personal performance training, personal development training, and then in 2016, I got a little bit lost again. Once again, because I wasn't really clear, where am I going? I still hadn't sorted out the being good enough issue that I had within me. Although I had done a lot from a health perspective, I'd done a lot from creating the life that I really wanted. I was clear about what that was. And then in 2016, I started looking out. I needed some more help. And once again, I went out to find it. I traveled the world to find one of the best teachers that was with me on the journey, sat down with him, and realized what I was missing from my life. And that was, once again, I had moved to Cyprus by this time with my family. And I had isolated myself in Cyprus, in my office, by myself, which was the worst thing I could possibly do. I had forgotten about getting, I had great friends, great connections, but they were nowhere around me. They were like in different countries.
So you went into your cave.
And I went to my cave, yeah. And I thought if I just sat in front of my computer long enough, every single day, I would find the solutions to my problems.
This is like a story of the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's how the Matrix starts, actually.
I was just stuck in my head, though. And that's the problem, I think. I see a lot of guys. We think we can outthink the issues that we are facing by going around and around and trying to find the solution in our brains when the solution isn't in there in the first place. Because if it was, we would have found it the first time we started thinking about it and not the 1000th time that we thought about it. Through that work that I did around the 2016, I started getting to men's work. And this was the big step forward for me. It was transformational in the sense that I just realized, hang on a second, there's a lot of stuff that I'm carrying, that some guilt, some shame, some pain, a lot of pain that I hadn't dealt with. I had suppressed all of this. And going into men's work, specifically working with other men, just opened up a whole new world for me and actually started for the first time in my life answering some deep issues about how I thought about myself, what I believed about myself, and how I could actually finally achieve that fulfillment that I was looking for in life.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I wanted to ask you a question. Do you ever feel like something's just missing? Like there's something more out there and you just can't put your finger on it? I totally get it. Go over right now to thepowerfulman.com/freedom to discover the system that other businessmen just like you are using. We've included 10 case studies, 10 men just like you who have found the solution and have found their way on their path. And we want to share that with you. Go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom right away. Now let's get back to the show.
Which is so important, when you think about when it all comes down to it, it is that self-actualization, right? Of really understanding who we are as men. Because there's no transition point. To your point earlier in the story, like you leave home, it's not a transition of how do you define when a man becomes a man? Is that age? Is it, sexual reproduction organs? Or is it actually something else inside in a deeper level? And based on my experience, I would suggest it's the latter. It's something that's happening within inside of us, and some age of fulfillment. And I think there's different stages, Arthur. I think there's different levels of self-actualization, and we change. It's kind of that idea of, I want to find my purpose. Well, great, but your purpose can change tomorrow. It can change next year. It's not this one set in stone thing. Enjoy it when you find it. And yes, you should find why you're here, but know that this is always evolving, this journey that we're on.
Yeah. I think like in years gone by, when we were like a little bit more primitive, we call it primitive now, but I'm not sure how primitive it was. I think it was more advanced in many ways. The guys had an initiation route, and wherever you went, there was an initiation from boy to man in the tribe. And in the Western world, we've lost this. We've lost this. We just kind of just gel into, oh, now you finish school, now you go to university or college or whatever it is, and then you get a job. That's not an initiation from from boy to man. And so yeah, you're right. And I think mine was my initiation. I was probably still a boy back then. And at 26, that was when I actually decided, not that I was going to be the man now, but I took responsibility for my life, which I think is one of the key tenets to actually making that transition into being a man from a boy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also, guys listening to this, you could be 55 and still not have made that transition. It's an emotional and intellectual, but emotional and spiritual transition in my experience. And it's not a judgment thing, that's at all. If you're 60 and you're still in the childhood era, fine, don't worry about it. Your journey is different than Arthur's or mine, perhaps. Although some may debate that I still haven't made that transition. But I hope to always be childlike in my life. So Arthur, you're going through there, you're coming through, you decide men's work is what you want to do. This is we'll call this pre-Doug era, but before I even met you. And you stumbled upon Tim, or tell me about that.
Okay. So I'd been in a men's group for 2 years with a great teacher in the States, John Wineland. It'd been an amazing time of developing depth, cultivating depth, and spending time with guys. And so I really wanted to get more just get more of that. And so, but I also wanted something closer to home because this was all states-based. And living in Cyprus, it was a little bit difficult to travel with family and all of that, and various businesses. And so I was looking in the UK and came across one of the videos with Tim, and I'd seen him a couple of times, but I hadn't actually clicked on the video. I remember that. And then, as Facebook does, or as the advertising does, it keeps triggering. There was obviously a pixel there, and then I kept seeing him. And so I thought, okay, I think I was in Prague at the time, or just before we went to Prague for New Year's with my wife. I clicked on the video, listened to what Tim was saying, and what he was saying really resonated with me. I can't remember exactly what it was that resonated, but just what he was talking about, I just thought, shit, that's me. And actually, as I talk about now, I think it was to do with that fulfillment thing. It was like, instead of just doing, it was more coming from a place of being, and living from being that powerful man, and a knowing of who you are and the power that you have. And his words back then really resonated with me. I reached out to him. He gave me a call. We had a call while I was in Prague, signed up then. And that was another big piece in the puzzle. Going through the activation program, and then the alpha reset that follows that. That was amazing. I've felt energy go through my body like twice in my life, and like real energy, like shit, what the hell's that? And once was way back when I first started doing some work, and the second time was at the activation, at the alpha reset. But between the alpha reset and the activation method, I transformed again. I shifted massively, and I really got into touch with who I am as a man, in a way that I know, not just believe or hope, but in a way that I know. And that's, once again, pushed me up to a whole new level now. And it's been an amazing time, because not only did I go through the activation and alpha reset, then I joined the Brotherhood. Then through an interesting conversation with Doug and Tim, I came aboard as a coach. And that's opened up even more growth within me, and the ability to contribute on such a much better, higher, wider level with more guys. And it's just been an amazing journey.
It's been awesome. I mean, One, I think it's important. You've been through almost all the popular men's coaching programs previous to this. And I remember your Alpha Reset. It was actually the first time you and I met. And one of the cool things about the Powerful Man, in my opinion, when I got involved was here you have a group of elite men, but they're from all over the world. Right now, literally my wife just brought bacon into my office because we're having breakfast here. You're 9 hours, I believe, ahead of me in Cyprus. And we get to talk every week, often. And it's that camaraderie of understanding that men from all over the world at a high level are operating at the same. We're different. Our cultures can be different. Languages can be different. But at the core, 99% of us are very similar. And I had the benefit of meeting you for the first time in Wales. And I remember, if I can share, well, I'm going to share this. I remember you were definitely of the mindset of, what the heck am I doing here? I've done all the courses before. I've done, whether it be, the beat your chest type, beat yourself up, beat somebody up at the beach. I'm not going to name the company's names, but you've done them all, right? And here you are, you're there. And you honestly, I don't think you wanted to be there at that time and that point. You were like, shit, what am I doing? I should just leave. But your transformational experience, and you played full out. That's not the credit to the program. You played full out during the event, especially on day number 2. As it got into it, something triggered within inside of you, and it felt like you just put down the gauntlet and said, "I'm in." And the leader that showed up that day, and I'll call it the leader, maybe the king, whatever you want to call. That person that showed up that day was such a resonance and proof of who you are as a person that you can't unsee that, right? It's like something that you have in your life that once you have the experience, maybe it's just call it your first orgasm. And it's the only thing that came to mind. Sorry, Arthur. But you don't unsee that. You don't not know how that feels. Now it's resonant with inside of you. It's part of your identity. And I saw that within you occur. And it wasn't an easy process. We always say that. It's not, the Alpha Reset is extremely the most transformational experience I've ever seen people go through by far. I'm talking better than psychedelics, better than plant medicines with shaman. You and I have both done a lot of that. They're different and they're all good where they come from. But the Alpha Reset, the real man inside has to show up in a big way for it to work. And that certainly happened for you.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I did arrive at that workshop with carrying a lot of ego, like, I've done it all, what can these guys teach me? And the first day, it was just like, I was stuck in that mindset. The second day was completely different. I don't know when I made the shift, what changed, but I did. And I'm so happy that I did, because you're right, I did play full out. I didn't hold back in any of those exercises. And the results came, and this is what we say to the guys, show up, do the work that anyone can do. It may not be easy, but everyone can do it. And I think we all did it that day. And I'm glad to say that every Alpha Reset I've been to, I think everyone has pretty much showed up. And the results, this is what's great about the program. We get consistent results, and all you have to do is show up fully. That's it. If you show up fully, we can pretty much guarantee that you're going to walk away with a massive result. And I did. It was an amazing time, and one of the most memorable times of my life. As a day, as if I think of days in my life, that was up there with top 10. The emotion I felt. The power that I felt, the connection that I felt, and as a result of that, the doors that have opened since is just unreal. And I just want every guy that's listening here to have that experience, because the process works. It just works, and it's been an amazing thing that's been put together. Tim started it, and we've improved on it. But fundamentally, it's what Tim brought together there that still just works every single time, because it just helps to get over all the stuff that we've been carrying for years in one fell swoop, and then claim who we really are as powerful men. And the combination of that is just amazingly powerful.
Yeah, and you never. The thing I think it's interesting for the men, guys that know you listening to this will know that you don't use hyperbole, at all. But when you say it's massive transformation, you mean massive transformation for these guys.
Yeah. I've been fortunate to have assisted on what's it now, 4 alpha resets, and to see the guys come in on day 1, and to see the same guys walk out on day 3, or day 4 the walkout, but they finish day 3, is it's just like they look like different people. People change colors. They have suddenly, it looks like there's blood flowing in their bodies. Where they couldn't bear to smile, now they can't stop smiling. I mean, every person has their own special way of shifting and looking when they come up. And I've been to a lot of workshops, as I think we've discussed here, and I think the Alpha Reset probably ranks up there as number 1. Number 2, as far as the amount of transformations that you witness with the people walking out. It's not another mind thing. It's not more information in your head, because we don't need more information in our heads. I proved that. I read every single bloody book I could get hold on. It didn't fix the problems. It's not more information we need. It's transformation we need. And as a result of understanding that, I actually step back from doing workshops unless I know that there's going to be some transformational element about it. And the Alpha Reset is truly transformational. Every guy deserves to go through it, and I hope every guy listening to this, just put your hand up and go for it. We have amazing results because it's an amazing program, I'll sell it all day long.
Well, guys, the really cool thing about this is Arthur, once you guys have heard Tim and I talk about this, is, there's a certain select group of people that are asked to go into the brotherhood, which is the next level. You have to do the work and prove that you're willing to do the work. You have the integrity, other things that we require to be a brotherhood. Arthur came into that. And out of that, we were looking for, the next elite coach to step in and mentor. I would say more of a mentor than coach. I don't like the word coach, but you're more of an advisor and mentor. It's the role we really play. And obviously, being an international organization, the contacts we have, we could pick anyone in the world essentially and pull them on board with the mission, because as Arthur says, it just works. And the one person we wanted was Arthur, and he was in the group. And so fast forward to today, Arthur actually runs and kicks off the activation method, and he also advises and mentors the men in the brotherhood, amongst other things. So if you're out there, and as Arthur said, raise your hand. If you decide to raise your hand and go to an Alpha Reset, we have one in November, which Arthur and I will both be at in the UK. Arthur will actually be probably your first point of contact. And so you've heard Arthur's story. This is real. He's gone from where you are today potentially, and made that full transition. So proof in the pudding. And he also is teaching it. He teaches it because he embodies it. And he's been an advisor to high level men, I would say the majority of your adult life in one way or the other. And you're doing it through this methodology now. So guys, you'll have the opportunity to actually, in the flesh and blood, as we'd like to say, touch or hug Arthur, or actually see him as a real man. And definitely somebody that I look up to and look to for guidance along my journey as I'm continuing to always progress. You always want to have an advisor, someone you trust in your corner to show you kind of the things that you're not seeing. So Arthur, let's go with where you are today. Obviously, I know I'm going to be seeing you, which I'm excited, in about 2 months at the next Alpha Reset, which is going to be another incredible experience. It's always amazing, right? We go to these things. Now we kind of go in there, we're like, okay, we're going to change another 10 to 12 men's lives. And then we walk out of those things, we just look at each other like, holy crap, that was amazing. And these guys are going to go home and change the lives, not only theirs, but their families and their communities and their businesses. So, anything you want to leave to these guys, if there's a guy that resonates with your story particularly, what are 1, 2, maybe even 3 things that you say, hey, look, you're listening to this, do this now?
So guys, it's, you have a choice. You can either carry on suffering in silence, hoping that things will get better, But unless you change what you do or how you do it, things cannot get better. And so reach out to us and we can go with you, work with you to make those changes that you need to see in your life. There's no point to keep on suffering, right? Because the solutions are out there. We have them, and we can help you. So whatever reasons not to do it are coming up in your head, trust me, we've heard it all, and they're probably not valid, right? Have a conversation. Just have a conversation. We're not going to sell it to you. Have a conversation. That's all it is. It's a 20-minute conversation. We call it a clarity call. Get on it. We'll have a chat if we can help you. And most of the time, we will be able to help you. We can take it to the next level. If we can't, we're not going to sell to you. You can go off on your own way. But guys, here is an opportunity, a massive opportunity. Don't suffer another day in silence, because there are options, there are solutions, and we can help you.
There you go, guys. Well, Arthur, thank you so much for being here. Gentlemen, also listen to Arthur. Do not suffer in silence. Life is too short, right? You don't have a back pocket life. This isn't a video game where you get 3 lives. You get to hit the reset button. This is your life today. And as Arthur said, do not suffer in silence. Raise your hand. Have a conversation with Tim, with Arthur, with somebody. And like, as he said, it's just a conversation, and a conversation that matters, right? Because it's about your life and your progression, and no one's looking to sell anything. We're looking, hey, can we help? Yes. Can we help? No. And then it goes from there. So gentlemen, don't take this any further. If you have not had that conversation, do yourself a favor, give yourself a gift, give a gift to the people around you, and go ahead and book that clarity call. You can find more information about also the Alpha Reset if you go over to thepowerfulman.com/freedom. Guys, that's another episode for us, and look forward to seeing you next time.